Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10 and support the channel at the same time. Hey there, it's John from Heroes and Legends, and we begin the second week of official Ixalan previews. We got some good cards to look at again. A couple really interesting transform cards. You see part of one on the screen here, but more on that in just a few moments. Quickly before we get started though, if you check out the description below, you'll find a few ways to help support us and help us keep making videos. One of which is our Amazon affiliate links. If you make any purchases from Amazon, once you go through those links, and it could be anything, a small percentage will come back to us. You'll also find our Patreon page linked below. And finally, Flipside Gaming has provided a promo code for our viewers, and they do have Ixalan as well as Iconic Masters pre-orders going on right now. So with that being said, let's get into the information for today. And we're going to start off with one of those transform cards with Legion's Landing. It costs a white, it's a legendary enchantment, rare. When this enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. When you attack with 3 or more creatures, transform Legion's Landing. It turns into Adanto the First Fort. It's a legendary land. You can tap it for white mana or pay a white and 2, tap, create a 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink. Now this is another one of those cards that's here to help you power out that 1/1 white vampire creature token with lifelink strategy that is going to be an essential part of the limited game, right? Some sealed pools could pull it off. Definitely draft decks that are zeroing in on vampires could find some value from a card like this. For me, it's not first pickable. I want to already be in the vampire deck before I grab this one, so maybe pack 3 I might first pick it, but I feel like this is one of those cards that's going to just go around the table until the person who's in the vampire deck figures out that they're there, right? And then they'll grab it and they'll be happy to grab it. It's just another piece to that strategy. And that strategy is all about going wide, overwhelming your opponent, just from what we've seen over the last couple weeks. There's some buff spells that are going to enhance the vampires, and if you get the right combination of those things, you could have a good deck on your hands, no doubt. And this will be a part of that strategy, if not the core piece of it, right? Now for standard, there's still a big question mark in my mind whether vampires can cross over well as a standard deck. I haven't really seen the pieces yet that make me feel like that's going to be a thing, but we have more of the set to see, so maybe my mind will be changed by next Friday when we start the full set review, but at least for right now, I just don't really feel it. Now, maybe in a future meta, Rivals of Ixalan could provide some more vampires, and even if that's the case, I don't know if this necessarily makes it either, considering it's a legendary enchantment. That could be a little bit awkward too, even though it is cheap. It does have that going for it. So it's an interesting card, definitely more so for the limited game though, I think. Next, we have a very interesting card. This is Spell Swindle. 2 blue and 3. It's an instant rare counter target spell. Create X colorless treasure artifact tokens where X is the spell's converted mana cost. And of course, they can be sacrificed and tapped to get 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. It's very easy to draw the parallels between this and Mana Drain, and a lot of people are thinking about that card right now because of the Iconic Masters reveals this past weekend. Now, with that being said, this card is a little different in some ways. Obviously, the casting cost is the most notable one. It costs 5 instead of 2. That's a big difference, of course. But once you actually cast the card, it executes a little better than Mana Drain, actually, because you can bank this mana and you can get mana of any color out of it. That's super sweet, so I do like that. One thing that I'm a little concerned, maybe a tad bit, is a few years back there was a fixed Mana Drain in Dragon's Maze, and it really didn't see any play. Now that card was a little bit awkward though, because it costs 2 blue and 2 green, and that made it very difficult to cast, where this is only 1 color, even though it is 1 more collectively. It's still easier to cast, I think, most of the time, and easier to work into a deck. So where does that leave us at the end? Well, I think you have to adjust your expectations a little bit for this card. As close as it feels to Mana Drain, it really isn't Mana Drain when you're talking about 5 mana. And you have to ask yourself, what are you wrapping into exactly in Standard, right? Like, control decks, yeah, it would be nice to have extra mana because control decks always want mana. And being able to put down maybe a crazy creature for your win condition and then backing up with a counterspell is good. And because of that, I do think this could see some Standard play. I don't think this is a 4 of though. This is not a slam dunk 4 of in every single deck, right? This is one of those cards that maybe shows up as a 2 of, maybe a 3 of in some decks, but probably more like a 2 of, and that's fine. That's going to be enough, and again, I do think it could get there in that capacity. Where this card really shines for me is Commander, like a multiplayer game where you have a little more flexibility and you're trying to ramp into some big crazy things. Now beyond that, for Limited, this is also a good card. I could see this being a first pick in draft. Again, it's not going to fit into every deck because you want to be in a more methodical controlling build, and you also want to have something to do with this mana. Some decks aren't going to meet those requirements, then you don't play this card, but I think plenty of decks in both sealed and drafts will be happy to run this. Trove of Temptation. This is a red and 3 enchantment, uncommon. Each opponent must attack you or a planeswalker you control with at least one creature each combat if able. At the beginning of your end step, create a colorless treasure artifact token. So this card's interesting. Here's my first thought. I usually don't like enchantments and don't really do anything when you play them. This one costs 4. That doesn't feel good. But at the end of the turn, you do get the token, so it kind of starts building its equity right away. So, okay, I'm alright with that. That first part is supposed to sound like a drawback, but I honestly don't feel like it is. Now, in multiplayer, let's say Commander first, it is a drawback. Just because the opponent can attack doesn't mean they're going to attack you, right? So this is a little awkward there. Might draw some heat onto you for no real reason, and it's a little bit slow, especially in a multiplayer game where you're going to be going through a lot of turns before it gets back to you. Now, in a 1v1 game, it's a little bit different. That feels like upside to me, quite honestly. Now, you first think to yourself, well, I don't want people attacking me, but look at it this way. They're going to attack you anyway. If the attack is profitable, your opponent's attacking you, right? It's going to happen no matter what. Now, if it's not profitable, that's when they hold back. So why are they holding back is the question. Well, this card takes that out of their hands, and now they have to attack you with at least one creature. So maybe they're holding back because they don't want their creature to run into something bigger and die, and they don't have a combat trick. Maybe they're holding back because they need to be defensive, and you are building a bigger board state, and you're going to run them over if they don't have the blocker. So all of a sudden, forcing this attack actually is a good thing as opposed to a bad thing. Now, unless you're against a brand new player that doesn't know it's good to attack you, but most of the time, this is actually going to be upside. Now, the ability itself, okay, you can slowly kind of build up. This could be interesting with Revel in Riches or Mechanized Production if that were to become a thing. Now, I'm not sold that that will be a standard deck, but I do think people are going to try to pull it together. Those alternate win condition kind of crazy decks, sometimes they have a moment in the sun, like early on in the meta, they sneak into one of those like early Star City Games Opens or something like that and perform well, and then they kind of disappear into obscurity. So you never know. That could happen with this card and with that deck, but I guess we'll wait and see. I think it's a really cool idea to at least try to brew, if nothing else. We'll talk about limited real quick with this one. It's okay. Like, again, if you have a reason to color fix or build up a little bit, like it's definitely runnable, but you might not always need this. It probably doesn't always make your cut. I don't think this is like a first pick or even second or third pick necessarily, but once I know that that's a requirement that I'm lacking in my draft, then maybe I just pick it up when I can pick it up. So it's an okay card there, and in some builds it's going to be just fine, but it's not always going to be something you're going to run, I don't think. Snapping Sailback. This is a green and 4 dinosaur uncommon with flash, 4/4 and enrage. And this time, when it's dealt damage, it gets a +1/+1 counter on it. So a little bit like Fungasaur, but this is a great limited card. Like, this is going to be annoying in a game of Sealed or Draft to deal with, right? Like, if you can flash this into play and surprise your opponent at the end of their turn, now you got this 4/4 for 5 with enrage. They can just attack in and do some damage. And your opponent's in this weird situation. Like, say they have a 2/2 or 3/3 in play. Like, they can't really do anything to this because you don't want to block it, because then it's going to become a 5/5 and you lost your creature, and then you don't have the ability to maybe next turn put something down and double block it. So you just kind of eat the 4 damage, and it just doesn't feel good. If this is backed up with some removal, it just could get out of hand pretty quickly, or some other abilities that are pinging your own creatures. We've seen some of those too, so quickly making this like a 5/5 could be really sweet too. So yeah, this card is awesome for limited. Like, this is probably first pickable in a lot of packs and draft. You're going to be happy to open this in sealed. I don't know about standards yet. I do have to see, I think, the rest of the dinosaurs. I do think there could be a Naya dinosaur deck. If that's the case, I don't know if this quite makes it. Maybe a 1-of or something like that. There could be some other things going on that that deck's trying to do, especially when you're looking at the 5 spot. So I don't know if it quite gets there, but it's definitely awesome for you in limited. All right, this next one comes to us from a Russian language preview, loosely translated as Sky Terror. It costs a red and a white. It's a dinosaur 2/2 flying menace, and it's an uncommon. So that's kind of unusual. You don't see a whole lot of flying menace, but it does really put the exclamation point that they want to make this very difficult to block. It is a 2/2, but it is 2 different colors, so sometimes that maybe is more of a turn 3 play a lot of the time. But that's okay, because imagine if this was a white and 2, it would still be a good card. I'd still be happy to run this in limited. I don't feel like this is a first pick in draft, but this is maybe a middle of the pack pick. Good if you're already in dinosaurs and have some things to buff them. It's an okay little flyer. Otherwise, if you're just desperate for something like that, just to fill your curve, but the dual color, again, makes it a tad bit awkward. But I love the fact that it can get across with damage pretty consistently most of the time in sealed and draft. I do like that a lot. So it's an interesting card. I don't really see it crossing over necessarily into standard or anything like that, but a good kind of curve filling middle of the road draft pick that could have some upside for you in the right situation. All right, and here's one of the situations where that card actually could be better. If you happen to have this one too, Dousing Dagger. It costs 2. It's an equipment. It's rare. When this enters the battlefield, target opponent creates 2 0/2 green plant creature tokens with Defender. Now, equipped creature gets +2/+1, and whenever equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you can transform. So it's a may transform. Don't have to. Costs 2 to equip, but this transforms into Lost Vale. It's a land. Tap, add 3 mana of any one color to your mana pool. I do want to point out that these are not legendary, so this is one of the transform cards that is not legendary. And Lost Vale, Lotus Vale, yeah, that's kind of cute. So, see what they did there. Okay, now here's the deal with this one. I like this card a lot. Like, Lotus Vale was an okay card. That drawback was real rough, though. This is different. The drawback's not as rough, but it's harder to pull off and probably takes a little more finagling to pull off. So which is better, which is worse? Well, I guess it depends on the situation. But here's what I like about this card. I'm going to talk about Commander first this time. Phenomenal, phenomenal Commander card. You throw down the artifact, give one of your opponents a couple plant tokens, pick on the weakest person to get this transformed. Now you have yourself a repeatable Lotus, basically transforming this into something that is going to give you tons of mana of the color you want. Yes, sign me up all day long. This thing could become a Commander staple, I think. It's phenomenal there. Limited, you have to have something to do with the mana. Usually you do. So I do think this is a first pickable card. Again, you do have to jump through a few hoops. Sometimes this doesn't work out, but you know what? It's worth the risk because the upside's good enough. So I do think I would be happy to first pick this in a lot of packs and draft. Happy to run this in sealed a lot of the time. Again, don't expect it to be the magic bullet win condition for you, but there's going to be times you might steal a game with something like this through the ramp ability into just something large. Now let's talk about standard a little bit. I mean, the raw power level's there, but here's my problem with this. Costs 2 to put out, 2 to equip. Then I have to put it on a creature that I have on the battlefield. Then I have to get that creature across for the combat damage. And then I have to have something to use this mana on. There's just too many and thens in there. Usually once you get to the second, third, fourth, and then, it turns out it's not a good standard card. So I don't really know. I mean, the power level's great if you can find a way to more consistently get this across. And maybe there is. Maybe it is a creature that is not blockable or a flying menace creature like we just saw. Who knows? But if there's a vehicle that can consistently do that, then maybe it does see some standard play before it leaves the format. But I just don't know what that vehicle is right now. And maybe we just haven't seen it yet. Maybe it's going to come out in a future set. Regardless of whether it ends up in standard or not, though, it's a really cool design. I'm glad they made the card. It's going to be really fun to play with in the right formats. Alright, with that being said, those are the cards for today. Some really cool transform cards today, no doubt. We actually keep seeing some really interesting cards, even now that we're in week 2, even with all the early leaks and everything. So I think that bodes well for the direction of the set. Seems like it's going to be a ton of fun to draft. I can't wait to see what else is going to be in this set over the course of the next few days. We'll be back tomorrow with another video. We'll talk about everything that's been previewed over the next 24 hours. We'll do the same on Wednesday, the same on Thursday. Friday, we'll begin our full set review, looking at all the white cards in the set. And we'll carry that on through the weekend. So until next time, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible by the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon, and have a great day.